I want to show you how to create a character for Index Card RPG really quickly, and we're just going to walk step by step through this whole thing in just a few minutes. So by the end of this video, you have your own character and you're ready to play. For the very first thing that you're going to need is just a concept, an idea, some image in your mind of that awesome character you're going to play. Look on Google, search Google Images, add character art to the back of it, and just find something that resonates with you. After that, you're going to come up with a name, something cool for your character. You're going to write down the world that you're playing in, whether that's one of the big five or something homebrew. Then you're going to choose your life form. This is dependent on the world that you're in, as well as once you pick a life form, you're going to go into your stats and your effort or wherever. Under the life form, you're going to add a +1 or whatever the bonus is for your life form bonus. Then you're going to choose your type, which is your class for your character. This is your role, how you fit into the group, whatever. It will come into play with your starting abilities and your loot later on, but right now, just jot down whatever matches your concept best. Then you're going to work on a one-line story. This is not a backstory. This is not a history of your character. This is a statement of what they are, what they're doing, and how they fit into the group and into the adventure. It doesn't really have to be anything. It can be vague. It can be open-ended. It can just be something you build off of. Just make it brief, make it work, and go with it. After you finish working on the basics of who you are, work on your stats. Index Card RPG gives you 6 points to assign to any of the 6 stats in any array. You can dump all 6 into one stat or spread them out. You can add +1 to your base here, +2 here, and so on. Whatever works for your concept. This stat is going to be what you add on to your rolls whenever you're making a check. So for example, for this character, he has a +1 to his strength. So every time I make a strength check, it's going to be a d20 +1, and that's the result. And I'm going to be trying to beat the target, and so on. Once you finish with your core stats, moving on to your effort, you have 4 points to do the same thing and spread them out across your different efforts. This is how well you are using different things or accomplishing different tasks. Basic is like using your head, using your fists, weapons and tools. Obviously weapons and tools, the guns, it's your firearms, energy and magic, how well are you at casting magic and doing magic. Ultimate is how good are you at those big epic moments and along the way. So 4 points spread out against all the base for your effort. Then you can come in here and identify some of the status points of your character, like defense, your hearts, your hero coin, your dying. Every character starts with 1 heart, which is 10 HP. There's extra hearts here because you can earn more through milestones or from loot items, but most characters start with just 1, and most characters will only have 2 over the course of their whole progression, but they're there just in case. Your defense will come into play later once you establish your loot. Your defense is what enemies have to roll to hit you, and every character starts with a base of 10, and then it's going to be your con bonus plus your loot will give you your total defense. So if you have anything in your con, you'll add that plus whatever you get from your loot, and you'll end up with your defense score. Hero coin is a space that you can track if you have a hero coin or not. Every character can have 1 at a time, and they're gifted from your GM for doing something awesome. Dying is how many rounds it will take for your dying. You'll probably learn about that when you actually hit 0 HP, and your GM will walk you through that process, but that's where you keep track of how many rounds you have left. Then, once you have all this top half, you can come down and start working through your abilities, your powers, your augments, and your loot. First thing first is your abilities. Based on what character type you chose, you can choose an ability. You can choose just one from your character type. Just choose one that matches your concept, gives you an ability, something awesome to do. Jot that down. Your powers and your augment only are come into play really with like powers come into play a lot with superheroes, Vigilante City. Augments come in with like Cyberpunk because powers are things that you have that you slowly upgrade over time. It's the same as ability, but rather than something that you earned or gained through training and experience, you just inherently had it. And augments is something that you've kind of like attached to your physical body, like a mechanical arm or a crystal eye or something cool like that. So if you're playing in a world like that, you've got powers and augments, but most of the time abilities is where you're going to focus. Then you're going to move on to loot, which is just where a lot of the customization comes in for ICRPG. For your very first one, you're going to pick 1 starting loot, again, based off your type. Pick 1 starting loot that matches what you want. And then afterwards, you're going to pick 4 basic equipment pieces from the basic equipment list. These are things that will help facilitate things. They'll give you bonuses. They might add in things to your stats or your effort or your defense. So you can jot those down and make adjustments accordingly. You can choose from wherever, but mostly it's just from your world. Pick your basic gear and you start with 4 of them. You can pay attention to the equipped and carried rules, which are 10 equipped and 10 carried. Something must be equipped in order for the bonuses to apply. But for starting characters, that doesn't really matter because you're starting with so little. You'll gain a lot over time, but so be aware. Once you have your loot done, you can finalize your defense, you can finalize any of your stats. You can see here that I've combined my base, my life form, my loot bonuses into a total bonus for what I know I need to roll, or what I get every time I roll. So for Dex, for example, I get 2 from base, 1 from life form, nothing from loot, and so my total Dex bonus is 3. Every time I roll a d20 for a Dex check, I get +3 to it, and we're good to go. And essentially, at this point, you have your character. Anything else that you want to do with your character is customizing it with your GM. You don't have to stick to one world. You can pull from pretty much anything. The loot list, the different worlds, any book, anything, not even ICRPG. Pull from wherever, or even your own imagination. Creating a character in ICRPG is super simple, straightforward, and easy because it's so flexible and so open to DIY. Just come up with a concept and work with your GM to make it work, and ICRPG can handle it. And so if you followed along through all of these different steps using the character sheets I had linked below, you should be able to have a character ready to play. If you need help, you can pick up a collection of fantasy pre-gen characters that I made. I'll have a link for that in the description as below. If you're a GM that's wanting to introduce ICRPG to your players, grab these, introduce them, let them pick, and then go to town. They follow the same process, so you can kind of use these as examples and start building your own. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about ICRPG, up here I've got a link to some of the core basic rules for ICRPG, and over here I've also talked about an in-depth discussion of all the gear, of how it works or how you can run it. So if you have any questions about that, watch this one, or if you just want to learn more about ICRPG, watch these.